I consider myself a bit of Miss Piggy.
Mm,
If you were going to say that, like, you identify with
mm.
a Muppet, which Muppet are you?
Rolf.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's an easy question, Rolf. He's always been my favorite. Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe I answered who's my favorite. Who would I identify with? I mean, it
Yes.
might be Rolf. I think Rolf's funny. I love the way he's just on the piano and he's doing his own thing. I don't quite know how Jim Henson and their crew were able to do it, but they're able to balance just this really lovely, irreverent humor, but also with just such a nice heart. I mean, no, I'm not an animal guy, much more of a Rolf.
I feel like this tracks. Another thing that I thought was
But probably in
fascinating.
real life, I'm a scooter. I think that's really, we all think we're a Rolf for an animal, but we're all a scooter.
I am Miss Piggy.
MeMeCherry presents a series of fortunate events. Fortunate events. Fortunate events. A series of fortunate events.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody, to the latest episode of the series Fortunate Events, a podcast brought to you by who? It's still me, Mimi Cherry. And today I am joined by
Ritch Duncan.
Woohoo! I met Ritch through the Keeping the Girl podcast that I was a guest on recently. And for those that are more familiar with my podcast, Ritch is kind of low key Keith's drag dad because he let him, but in comedy version, the comedy version of a drag father. So we have you to thank or blame.
I don't think anybody could have stopped Keith from doing comedy. I think I was the last guy on the wall when he breached the when he breached the defenses. But I was happy. I was happy to get credit for inflicting that monster on the world.
Oh, well, Podfather he is, but we're not here for him. We're here for you, Ritch Duncan. And I pulled this from your website and I literally had to just copy paste because I loved it and I wanted to read it word for word. There's a picture of you. The description of picture is portrait of the author with his actual real life test, and you're holding up a picture. Ritch Duncan is an award-winning comedy writer, copywriter, published author, and social media creative whose specialties include television and film production, social media for fictional characters, streaming platforms, social media marketing, brand voice, public speaking, ice hockey, and werewolves. That's my favorite part. Currently freelancing as a creative copywriter for Sesame Workshop. Is that still happening?
Yep,
I'm fascinated by that. We are going to get into that.
sure.
Amazon's AI device, Alexa, the Civic Center, a nonpartisan nonprofit project of community partners. Rich has also written for Saturday Night Live, The New York Times, Billy on the Street, The Impractical Jokers, NPR, Warner Media, and Adam Ruins Everything. And he'd like to write for you, if you're nice. And as my drag mother likes to say, we love boundaries. So it's just I'm fascinated by this
Yeah.
Sesame workshop. And then I hit a couple of links. And so you write like as if you're Sesame Street characters, but like for their social media.
Well, right now I'm doing actually more work with PBS Kids, which
Okay.
is not the PBS Kids is involved with Sesame Workshop, which is involved with Sesame Street. It's a harder to explain for once you get into it, but I have one of the ways I got into the PBS Kids gig was doing freelancing for Sesame Street characters, and I got to write in the voices of Sesame Street characters. So I've tweeted for Oscar and Big Bird and Elmo and Ernie and Bert. Bert was my absolute favorite.
Queer
And
icons.
oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, and it was just the thrill of a lifetime. And honestly, it's really delightful to be able to talk about it on this podcast because I'm like the work that I got on for Sesame Street would go on Twitter, or sometimes they would take a tweet that I'd written and they would like put it up on Instagram and just do a picture of the tweet. The text of the tweet would be the Instagram post. And I was
Yes.
always so hesitant to say I did it because,
Yes.
these characters are real. You know what I mean? Like I can't,
Yes.
I don't want somebody clicking around and being like, what do you mean that wasn't Bert?
I
Like,
know.
because once it enters that universe, that is
It
Bert.
becomes
That is
canon.
it absolutely, and I take it seriously, and I don't want and whatever, supposedly kids aren't on social media, but I mean, but even adults, I mean, there is a magic to that I really wanted to
Yes.
respect.
You want to
And
keep the fantasy alive.
yeah. And you know what? I have actually a really interesting story about that kind of magic.
Please tell me.
I went and saw a show. The show I'm currently doing, it'll be long over by the time this airs, but it's called the So You're Not in Scotland Festival. And I'm doing my one-man show, which is called Set for Life in that festival, or will have done it. But I got to
Yes.
see this show and
And it was amazing.
it was so great. I mean, candidly, I can't believe you got me after what a huge success it was.
What a booking coup.
But I saw this terrific show, and I think that the name of the show in the festival was called Dolly Parton Grabbed My Ass on Christmas. And it's a show from this really terrific he's a professional clown, but he plays Santa Claus on Christmas and has played Santa Claus for years.
Oh
I need to
God.
I'll look up and find what his name is.
Please.
So we can
I
put it
love
on
the
there.
concept of a professional Santa.
He's a professional Santa, and so he was telling all these really wonderful stories. It was directed by my friend Kevin Marr, who's terrific, who does the Kevin Geeks Out series here in Manhattan. And it's just, he comes out in this Santa Claus makeup. I mean, the absolute costume, which is wild in the middle of the summer anyway, just to see it. But the reason I'm bringing up and he had, funny stories that if you've seen or heard, like the David Sedaris stories about being an elf, like
Yes,
they were
yes.
along that vein, charming, but a real person telling stories about Santa. And they were both irreverent and funny sometimes, but also genuinely sort of magical in instances where he had, done something magical with a kid or affected a sick child or someone who, really felt like they were in the presence of this Santa Claus thing. And it was fine. The stories were fine. But then what happened in this show is, as he's doing the show, he says, and then when Christmas, the season wraps up, it comes time to put it away. And he takes out this suitcase and starts taking off all of his Santa makeup and like takes off the wig and takes off the beard and takes off the jacket. And you could feel in the crowd people going, and so, like, when I talk about the Sesame Street thing, about the magic being real, it was one of those really effective moments where you think you're cynical and you think you're, in on showbiz, and here's this funny guy talking about, I dress up like Santa. But when you saw him taking off that costume and packing it away and in front of your eyes transforming back into a man,
Yes.
it was like, you really are like, oh my God, I do believe in Santa.
Yeah. It's interesting. I saw somebody who was retiring from drag, and like this was like their farewell show, and everybody was kind of doing numbers to them, and their final number, and it's a thing, like a de-dragging number where you start the number fully in drag, and as you're doing the number, you're taking the wig off, you're taking the makeup off.
I wonder if that Santa performance was inspired by that. That's fascinating.
It's giving that kind of quality, and it's interesting because seeing it also reminds me of like when they say that, like, allegedly, supposedly in Disney, the big head characters, like, they can't walk around without their big head on because it ruins the fantasy. We're just out here grown-up children trying to keep each other's fantasies alive at the end of the day.
Well, and that's what's so neat about it is like, you do think that you are over it, or what it is, and you're the one on the inside. But when you see that makeup come off, or there just was this hesitance, reticence, I should say, when I had done these tweets, that it was very difficult for me to take credit for them, So
Yeah.
the way I would do it is on my Instagram story, because at least I feel like, I'll say this one was one of mine, and it'll disappear in a day.
Yes.
you know,
It's somewhat ephemeral.
yeah. Well, I mean, I don't. It's. I mean, and candidly, you don't take credit for being Grover unless you're Frank Oz, or whoever the
Yeah.
Muppet performer is that is currently doing it and currently putting that life into it.
Of
I think you have to,
course.
respect that. So,
Of course. Well, I have two more questions in this
yeah,
realm, and then I'll move on from my fascination, the ADD, hyperfixation. I get hyperfixated sometimes.
of course.
So how do you get into the mind? Because if you're doing in theory like social media for like Beyonce or Charlie XCX, right? Like maybe you listen to the music and that's how you get into the head of the performer and you do the social media for them. What
Mhm.
is the process of like creating this voice of these iconic characters? Like, what
Mm.
does like Cookie Monster tweet about?
That's a great question. With each character,
Thanks,
and
I
I
have a
did.
podcast.
um uh, yeah, no, I mean, and I feel like I should have a better answer for this, since I definitely put on my resume, that I'm an expert in social media for fictional characters. I got to write for Ted Lasso as well, and Amazon's Alexa. So there is a process of how do you get yourself into each character. And
Sure.
I really did. I mean, the process is that there should be a process before you sit down to write. So, but it is specific to each character that you are writing for. I found that with the Sesame Street Muppets, one of the best ways for me to get into that, one of the best ways if I was off, was either to go back and watch YouTubes of the old Bert and Ernie,
Yeah.
anything with both Frank Oz and Jim Henson together,
Sure.
or even like a Piggy and Kermit, like
Yes.
those two men working and bouncing off each other. Or if you really want to get meta, you could do a Rolf and a Kermit where it's Jim Henson and Jim Henson. But one of the things that I found was really helpful to get into that voice of the Muppets in particular, is the opening credits sequence of the Great Muppet Caper.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen that one recently, but they do this really wonderful thing that I think encapsulates the Muppets' sense of humor really, really well, where they're parachuting down into wherever the cape. I think it takes place in London. I forget, but they're
I think so.
parachuting
Yeah.
down into Europe, and as they're parachuting down, they're throwing zingers back and forth, but they're also throwing really funny references out to the credits that are appearing on the screen. And there always has been, in my opinion, with the Muppets, a huge part of the humor has kind of been that breaking of the fourth wall, and
Yes.
the ability to kind of poke fun at themselves.
Yes.
you know so it's,
Yes.
there's just terrific jokes in that, where they're going by and Fozzie sees the credits and it's like, who are all those people? And it's like, and it's like, I don't know, does anybody care that it's there? And he goes, well, they probably have families. And the thing that is amazing about that joke is the people who have the fan, like those are the guys who are writing the jokes. They know all those people. There is a
Of
willingness
course.
to tease themselves.
Of
And I
course.
think so that was integral to getting in the space for that. For Cookie Monster, on tweets, what I really tried to do was just try to think of ways to talk about cookies without saying cookie.
Oh, I like that.
I mean, because, and that's the other thing too, with these iconic characters, you really can get away with, like, I could do a tweet that just said cookie in all caps with the million exclamation points, and it would do gangbusters.
Of course.
So you just kind of have to say, like, what can I take away? Like what is how can we connect, a piece and make it a little bit of a joke or a little bit of a reference without just repeating yourself, or just nakedly standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yes. My final Muppet related question, because it's a running theme that I consider myself part Muppet. It's very much a theme in my life. I was editing the podcast that I did with my sweet friend Charles Hawthorne, and they have a disco party. So we played a game where I presented them with Muppets, and if these Muppets were headlining at their disco party, what songs would they be performing? And I'm working on a drag number where I want to do a song as Miss Piggy. It's not a Miss Piggy song, but I feel like this is the kind of song that Miss Piggy would sing. My dog is crying right now. I'm sorry if you hear that in the background, but like, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I know we're not home right now, but you're gonna get my attention in a little bit. So I consider myself a bit of Miss Piggy. If you were going to say that, like, you identify with a Muppet, which Muppet are you?
Rolf.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's an easy question, you know. Rolf, he's always been my favorite. Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe I answered who's my favorite. Who would I identify with? I mean, it might be Rolf. I think Rolf's funny. I love the way he's just on the piano and he's doing his own thing. There's there's always such a sweet I don't quite know how Jim Henson and their crew were able to do it, but they're able to balance just this really lovely, irreverent humor, but also with just such a nice heart, you know. And I feel like, you know, I mean, you listen to something like "I Hope That Something Better Comes Along," you know, or now I can't think of one of the things, but I mean, no, I'm not an animal guy, you know, much more of a Rolf.
I feel like this tracks. Another thing that I thought was
but probably in real life, I'm a scooter. I think that's really, you know, we all think we're a Rolf or an animal, but we're all a scooter.
I am Miss Piggy.
No question.
Undeniable. If you know me, you're probably saying yes, queen. Something that I thought was fascinating in the prep for this podcast that we're doing, you have an interesting secret passion, because I even pinged Pod Daddy Keith Valley. I was like, hey, do you have any questions for Rich? He's like, no, nothing I could think of. And I was like, well, did you know and that you are fascinated by cats? And not cats as in like the meow meows, as in
although I like those cats too. No, the musical Cats. I'm fascinaid at every stage of its development. Like, it is, and I'm not even going to say I'll finish your question, but
well, first of all, why? So I think you were kind of going into it. I'll confess, I've never seen it. Like, I know it as a reference. I know it as a cultural reference. I know when the movie came out, I was listening to a podcast the other day where they were referencing the movie. And then there's online, there's this group that puts on, I think, like a semi-regular party where it's cats, but as like ballroom scene, like,
well, there's a Broadway show, or maybe I don't know if it's Broadway or ballroom or whatever it is, but there is a revival of Cats that's going on now downtown. That's like the Jellicle Ball, and it's cats, and I guess
Jellicle cats.
Yeah. Well, my wife and my daughter went to it, and they were like, I guess you didn't want to go to it. And I'm like, nah, I didn't want to go to it. Well, because here's the amazing thing about it. And so it's inspired.
Tell me. Sell me on Cats.
What gave it new life, I guess, is that it took the songs, which are beloved. These are Andrew Lloyd Webber songs that people love, Memory and whatever the hell the rest of them are called. And and a lot of the problems that people had with Cats was like, you'd be like, why are these actors dressed like cats? Like, it's so, and they don't even really look like cats. They kind of look like just weird, mangy Michael Jackson werewolves. You know what I mean? Like, they're kind of
like halfway cooked animorphs.
Yeah. They're like, like if like an anime cat, or like a cat from like, you know, like a cat from Thundercats. Remember that cartoon? Like, if one of those cats like banged against the wall, like in the Aha Take on Me video, and like kind of was like half cartoon and half whatever, they stumbled out, they would look like a cat from Cats. They're horrible looking. The actors, they also had to do all this horrible, like, you know, they're licking their paws and doing, like, it's all just like, it is. I have no problem with a fetish. I really don't. I think it's fine, but like, I sort of appreciate it if somebody's at least out in the open that it's happening. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like a furry, I have no problem with a furry. I know what's going on, you know, but like with the cats, you're like, how into that are you? You know what I mean? Like, it's troubling. And the music is
and
great.
fascinating.
Well, and also this is, and the thing is, it's so upsetting and so weird and so bizarre, right? But it also was like the longest running Broadway show of all time. Like people kept coming to it,
Going.
and they loved the song. Like it was, I mean, this was, when it finally ended at the Winter Garden, whenever it was 25 years ago, it had broken records. I think Phantom might have overtaken it, but like, I mean, this is a show that people kept coming back to. There was a revival of it recently. And I mean, and let me also say, I'm not a huge fan of the music, but I like it. It's catchy. But my experience with Cats was when I was a young man in New York City. Back in those days, you used to be able to do a thing.
Back in the 1900s.
I mean, it was the last century, so that's going to start sounding more and more cranky old man. But no, you used to be able to. It was called second acting, a Broadway show, and that's because when everybody used to smoke, the audiences would come out in between the first act and the second act, and if you mingled in with the crowd, the ushers would very rarely take your tickets or check. So basically, what you could do is, if you were a broke young artist like I was in the 1990s, you could go, and it would be, I forget what time it was, but like if it was the matinees, you could go, the show would start at whatever it was, 1 or 3 o'clock or whatever, and you'd know that all of the second act would happen an hour afterwards. So you go and you walk past the Broadway theaters and you smoke a cigarette when all the crowd comes out, and then you just file your way back in and you watch the second act. And that's how I watched Cats. I just, because I was curious, killed the cat, as it were. But the amazing thing about Cats is I'm just so baffled at every level that it happened. There's no plot. It's based on I think a T.S. Eliot
yes,
like poem, but that poem also doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like there isn't a plot to that. Like there's no precedent for like, there's a lot of Broadway shows based on T.S. Eliot prose poems. Like it's not, there's no reason for it to exist. And it's the most popular thing ever. And that fascinates me. Right. But the other thing about it is, even though it fascinates me, the cost of entry is always hovering way more than I would want to pay for it. As fascinated as I am by it, it's always like, not for $200.
Not that fascinated.
Like, I mean, it's like, I put it on the same level as like baseball. You know what I mean? Like baseball's fun when it's $20, when a baseball ticket starts costing $200, it's like, that's not what that product is, like, and so that's how I feel about Cats. It's remarkable to me that it keeps coming back and coming back and coming back, and it's so weird.
I love it.
And it's so I'm fascinated by it.
So what is it about niche? I feel like Cats, being a fan of Cats, feels like a very niche thing.
Shouldn't it be? And yet it's one of the most popular musicals in the entire world. That's the weirdest thing, right?
Shouldn't it be?
It shouldn't be as popular as it is. That's what I don't understand. It's like, I went down to Mexico one time, right? We went to a resort, and they had this amazing old, I think it's like an Aztec sport. I'm a hockey fan, and it was called Mexican fire hockey. And no joke, it's these 2 baskets, and they have a ball that's a wicker ball. They soak it in kerosene,
and they light it on fire.
They light it on fire, and they're playing hockey with this flaming ball, and they're hitting it in the air, and like you have to get into the hoop, and it's thrilling. And I'm like, this is amazing, but it's also, I have to go down to Mexico and see it in this thing because it's so weird and so bizarre, right? It would be like if that was as popular as the Super Bowl. It would be.
Okay. Imagine alien overlords have landed, and you are part of the culture ambassadors. And the one thing that you are in charge of explaining to the aliens is Cats. Go.
I'd just be like, I'm sorry.
Apologies.
I feel like Cats is the defense against taking us over. I'd be like, no, look at what our most popular thing is. And they'd be like, but there's no plot, right? And like, no, not at all. There's at the end, there's a giant tire that goes into the sky, and a kitty cat disappears, I guess. At one point, I'm not even kidding you, a pirate ship shows up and there's a bunch of pirate cats singing around and dancing and doing pirate cat stuff. There's a train station number. I don't know why. There isn't even, you know what Cats does not have in it? A dog. There's no dog. They don't even comment. There's no mouse. You know what I mean? Like there's no traditional.
Is there cheese?
No,
Wait, no, cheese is for mice.
Cheese is for mice. Yes, no cheese. No cat food. There's no traditional. You know what I mean? Like there's no.
No,
they don't do any funny normal, like they don't eat any lasagna. They don't like slowly tap a glass of water off a shelf while you're watching.
Cats are known to do.
Right. Yeah. They don't wake you up by putting their little round buttholes in your face. There's no traditional. They sing midnight numbers and dance around on pirate ships. It's absolutely ludicrous. And the aliens, I just would be like, They'd be like, what is this? I want to see why. And I'd be like, well, you're going to have to pay $200. They'd be like, I don't know. That seems like a lot. They're like, yeah, no, take me with you.
They're going to be like, but is there a matinee?
Like, well, if you smoked, we could second act this thing.
Oh my God. You're hilarious. I knew I was going to have fun with you. We're going to take a teensy tiny, quick little commercial break.
Awesome.
And then we'll be right back with some more. Ding.
Ding.
In my crumble opinion, I strongly identify as Zendaya as an Oakland baddie with a twink problem. Boink. Horny jail. The movie Goons. Gooning is to masturbation what Tashi's conception of tennis is, and what the boys think tennis is at the beginning of the film. End zone, penetrating the Enzo get. I don't know. What are some other home run, home base, touchdown? Let's punt. Rhymes with I don't know. That's fishy to me. And that straight guys are sometimes the most queer. Challengers does for queer theory what Barbie thinks it does for feminism. In my crumble opinion.
And we're back.
Hooray.
What a great commercial break. So speaking of commercial breaks, because we like to promote and share all the fun things that my amazing guests are doing, you have quite a few things happening right now and coming up. Tell me about your stand-up at QED with Gary Gulman.
Oh, Gary Gulman does this amazing. Well, Gary Gulman's terrific. He's just one of the best, smartest comedians out there working today. He's got he has a new album, but his special on it's on HBO or Max, whatever the hell they call it these days. It's called it's called The Great Depression, and it's just this really, really. It's a bunch of smart stand-up, but he's also got. I don't work for him or anything, but I'm a fan of his. But he has. When he works out other specials, he comes into New York City. I know he goes to QED and Caveat and does these shows called Pizzazz, where he basically works out material for his specials or shows or whatever he's working on. And I was lucky enough to get asked to appear on one of those shows. So that's happening on September 11th over at QED, which is also a wonderful place to go see comedy if you're ever in Astoria, Queens.
This is a very Keith Malley coded question. Is it weird to be performing on September 11th?
I don't know. I actually probably not. I think for many years it was. I mean, I was here in the city when that happened.
Yeah.
It's my clock.
It's okay.
Sounds ominous, right? Is it weird? No, not at all. Ding, ding. It tolls for thee.
What was that? Not to get too dark and deep, but wow, what the memory that I have that's burned in my brain, and I can only imagine it pales in comparison to you having been there in person. You remember?
I was in New York City in person, I should say. I was not downtown
still,
when it happened, but yes.
Yeah, but still, you feel it. It reverberates. It's close to home, literally.
Yeah, for sure.
And I remember, I don't know if you remember, but South Park had this episode where Stan's dad was basically like on the sofa for like days and days and days just watching the news, and that basically was my stepdad. And like I just remember like that's the core memory that I have of like that time, was like watching him obsessively watch the news. What was it like to be, so literally close to like ground zero?
I mean, it was surreal,
Yeah.
and horrible. I mean,
Yeah.
really, really horrible. Like my daughter's 15. I've still never been down to the museum. They have a museum that I've, at Ground Zero. It's apparently gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I just it's just not a thing that I want to go through again. Or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's the
Yeah.
closest thing that I can think of to, and this is one thing that's terrible about it, or affecting about it, is that I feel like no matter who you are or where you are, if you were near that area, your knee-jerk reaction is, well, someone else had it harder than me, so my own
Yeah.
experience is not worth mentioning or talking about
Well,
because,
I didn't jump out of it. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be
well,
so
but yeah,
flippant, but
I
yeah.
mean, like I
Yeah.
didn't, whatever it is, there
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
just a tremendous, and it was bigger than one. I mean, you could smell it for 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like
Mm,
it was really, I remember one of the things that, well, so anyway, my stance on it was I didn't need to go down and relive that.
yeah.
And for a long time, I would avoid the TV, just because on the anniversaries they'd play the footage over and over and over again,
Yeah.
the sort of comic memory that I remember from that day was that, I didn't have cable TV back in those days. So I had an antenna TV that ran through my VCR. And when I woke up, I turned my channels on and everything was blue, right? Like it was just,
Mm,
there were no channels because all of the analog channels were on the World Trade Center. And so none of those were working except for channel 2, which was CBS at the time, which was on the Empire State Building. So effectively what had happened with 9/11 is it turned my television into a 24-hour Ernie Anastas machine.
wow.
Ernie Anastas was the local news announcer at the time. So like whenever I used to have a television, and then all of a sudden I just had an Ernie Anastas machine in my living
Yeah.
room at any point,
Yeah.
we could watch that. But it was larger than anything, that you could really realistically
Wrap your
handle.
head
I
around.
I mean, I remember walking through the streets on that day, and we all went to go give blood, and the hospitals were like, yeah, there's nobody here, like there's nothing to do, and I remember,
That is, wow.
yeah,
I had never even heard of it. Like, fuck. That's
I'm, yeah, I
wild.
mean, this was in Brooklyn. We were living in Williamsburg at the time, and I remember we walked past, um, there was a pizza place, and there was these guys in the pizza place, and they were just working like crazy, just drilling out slices for everybody. And I remember
Yeah.
feeling jealous of them, thinking, oh
Because they
my
had
God,
something
at
to do.
least because they could do something, they could help
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
So that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there were
Yeah.
things that we eventually could do. One of the best things I ever did in my entire life was I went and worked on, they had these barges, the Circle Line cruises that would go around the city. They turned them into relief stations for ground zero workers. And what they did is they just parked them near ground zero, and we decked out that whole, I was part of the volunteer crew that would go down there, and like, we just basically had meals and tables out for them to have meals
Wow.
and come in and eat. And we were getting literally giant sacks of mail from all around the country that were just like
Wow.
school kids saying like, God bless you, thank you for your, service, God bless America, all this stuff. And so we were taking giant bags of mail and pulling letters out from kids from Indiana, Iowa, California, like all over the place, and putting them out on the tables for these
Oh my
workers
God,
to
that makes me want to
see.
cry.
I know.
Oof.
Anyway, we
What a
just
time to
jumped.
be alive.
We jumped from cats right into that.
It's a 9/11.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the reason why we even went down the rabbit hole of 9/11
Yeah.
is your stand up show. Let's
Right.
open it up with
Oh,
the
because I'm performing on 9/11. That's right. I can't believe I just gave away my opening 10 minutes. Was it funny? I hope it was funny. That's
I'm dying over here.
I just
Oh my gosh.
My point is, no, it's probably not a thing that
Not weird
don't
anymore.
I don't think it's going to be weird anymore. I think there's a lot of people in the city that don't. I mean, it was weird for a number of years, mostly because it felt like it was a shared trauma, and now it's
Yeah.
been so long that there are so many other people that are in the city that it doesn't, you know,
It doesn't
you know,
reverberate as much as it used to.
and certainly not in the way that
And time has passed.
that we can't
Yeah.
go into a comedy show and not necessarily talk about it, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to be able to do a thing and be part of a show that if someone in the city is my age or did live through that and they're in a place where they're like, I want to go check out a comedy show and just have a laugh, I'm
Yeah.
delighted that I can do something, that I'm in
Yeah.
a role, I'm in a place in it, that I can actually do something and maybe give somebody a smile or a laugh if they needed one on that day.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I can get really, really sentimental and cry, and then I can get really morbid too. I think I'm stealing somebody's joke, but I feel like there was something along the lines of like, how long is it till, just like the Titanic, people are doing ice luges off of like fake Titanics?
Mhm.
How long till like kids are doing, ice luges off of like the
Right.
trade center?
No. I mean, there was a comedian friend of mine from back then. He used to have this amazing joke where he was just, he would talk about how, he's like, he lived through Ground Zero 2 or, 9/11 and was there. And he's like, I don't want to make it a national holiday. There was talk at the time about making it a national holiday.
Yes.
And this
Yes.
guy's a comedian. His name's John Corbett. He was terrific. And he had this bit where he's like, I don't want to make it a national holiday because, 10 years down the line, they'll be all out there going like, hey, come on down to Ground Bureau. We're giving out fire hats.
I think it might be that I'm
that?
like, yes, I think I'm like there, I'm circling the drain, and I think that might be part of what's inspiring it. And I think I'm probably cobbling together a couple of it's not an original thought. But yeah. Anyways,
I think there was a lot of comedy for those of us who lived through it about people that we felt were cashing in on it or being disrespectful about it, or
Sure.
like at the
Didn't
time
somebody get in trouble for saying that he was there and he wasn't? Like, wasn't there a comedian?
Yes, there was some sort of. Yes, there was a comedian. I can't remember his
name, but yeah, I remember
feel like
somebody getting in trouble for that.
I feel like it was like tangentially related to Buffalo Wild Wings somehow. Does that make sense?
As things are.
Yeah.
And then Cats.
Hey, stop by the podcast. We're gonna do Cats, we're gonna do 9/11, we're gonna jump to Buffalo Wild Wings.
And a comedian who lied about being a 9/11.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit more before we move on.
Yeah.
From this show. I feel like you look up to Gary Gulman. You told me a little bit. How do your comedy styles complement each other if somebody's looking forward to like seeing a show with the two of you together?
I mean, he's I don't want to I don't want to toot my own horn and say that he's been doing it a very long time and he's very, very good. And I have been doing it a very long time, but took about 15 years off. So
I'm okay.
I'm okay. I can do it. But he is his crowd and what he values. First of all, we're both from Massachusetts. So there is sort of that wise ass streak, but still from a guy who's a reader, he's this is listens to NPR but is the first to criticize it. It's that kind of a vibe.
An educated wise ass.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very me-coded.
Yes. But he's terrific. He's also like a 6 foot something non-jock, which is just astonishing to me. Like, how do you get through your life being that tall and just being like, nah, I'd rather read. I just yeah, at least I looked the part of a scraggly little nerd.
Well, I am very excited for you to be back in the scene and doing your thing, and I can't wait to hear how that show goes, and I'm sure it's going to be a roaring success just like your other show.
Oh, no, we hope.
So we're going to have a couple of quick little gamelets.
Great. Love a gamelet.
Before our amazing fun time is sadly over. My least favorite part of the podcast is when it's over, but we're not there yet. So we're going to bring it back to a little meow meow.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you some cats trivia questions.
Okay.
Let's see how much you know your cats.
Okay.
Are you into it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we're talking about the show Cats, right?
Yes.
I'm
yes.
I'm gonna know very little, but there might be some entertainment value to it.
Which cat is known as the leader of the Jellicle Cats? Jellicle Cats.
Yeah. Heathcliff? I don't know. I don't.
Old
Deuteronomy. Old Deuteronomy.
Yes.
Old Deuteronomy. There you go. Okay. Which, by the way, that's like a Bible verse. What the hell are you naming a cat? Like, and also they add Old Deuteronomy, right? Like there's numerous
Not
cats
the young
named.
one.
Yeah, right. Not the young spry Deuteronomy. Right.
What unusual element is used as part of the costume design for the Cats characters?
God, this is disgusting.
I mean, you kind of brought this up already.
It's probably like donkey hair or something. Is it something disgusting? It's the hair, right? It's probably like the fur, right?
The actors wear unitards with extensive face paint to resemble feline features. So yeah, just like their felininess of it all. But it feels like they're trying really hard, but it's just not there. Right?
I mean, I feel like if I met someone who was in Cats, I would never stop talking to them. But like, what? How? Why? What?
Who composed the music for Cats?
That's Andrew Lloyd Webber, I believe.
That's a gimme. There you go. What year did Cats first premiere in London's West End? The fact that it premiered in London's West End.
I'd probably say like 1981. The whole thing feels like a very 1980s.
You got
vibe.
it.
Nice.
You got it on the dot. My God. What is the name of the character?
That's it. Cats is a thing that has to just come out of the 1970s, right? Where they're just like, I don't know, fuck it. Can I swear on this?
Yes, fuck cunt shit. Yeah, cocaine and disco's over. So Cats.
Right? This is what we have.
How many Tony Awards did Cats win after its Broadway premiere in 1982?
Probably like all of them, right? I mean, I can sort of. I mean,
a number, 1 to 10.
Is 10 the top? I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many.
It's between 1 and 10.
10.
It's 7. 7 Tony Awards.
7 Tony Awards. It won for probably best cat, right?
The best cat.
I mean, that one you figured like every, you know what I mean? Like they were like
the best memory,
right?
And speaking of memory, what is the name of the character who sings "Memory," the most famous song from Cats? Meow meow. Cats,
Rum
Cats,
Tum
meow,
Tugger.
meow. Grisabella.
No, Grisabella. The theater kids in my life are going to be all over me for not knowing this. My wife.
I love how I'm like.
My wife is going to be. She's going to be running, listening to this podcast, screaming on the West Side Highway, going, "He knows. How do you? Why is he even talking about this? He hates this."
My favorite part of listening to podcasts is yelling at the podcast when there's nobody there except me and the dog. Right. Last one for you. What is for Cats, the trivia? What is the central event around which the story of Cats revolves?
I mean,
even though you said there is none.
I don't. I mean, I think that the old cat dies.
There's an
at
event.
The end. That
There's another event.
Does the cat go to cat heaven?
Think of another event. I'll give you that.
Does the cat
not
go on a pirate ship? Does the
Jellicle Ball?
Oh, there's a Jellicle Ball. That's a dance.
The Jellicle Ball, where one cat is chosen to ascend to the Heaviside layer and be reborn.
The Heaviside layer, this is. I said 80s, but this is 60s all the way, man. The Heaviside layer. Get the f out of here.
It's Scientology, but with cats.
Yeah.
Thank you for yes-anding that silliness. Speaking of yes and, we're gonna get extra silly.
Okay.
I have 3 fictional Broadway show prompts. I'm gonna tell you the name of the show. You tell me what this show is.
Okay, you have 3 props. Or props. Or prompts?
Prompts.
Oh, so
Mhm.
you're gonna tell me.
I'm going to tell you the name of the show, and you
Mhm.
tell me what the show is.
Okay, all right,
You
fair
fill in the
enough.
blank.
Yeah, gotcha. This is a Broadway show.
So, yes, hot on the ticket news, the most in-demand show for 2025 on the Great White Way. Is that what they call it?
Yes, they do.
On the Great White Way that's sometimes pink. I don't know. Sorry. That's just me being gay. The Pigeon
I like that you felt the
Whisperer.
need to gay up Broadway. By the way, that's yeah. If only it was a little bit more.
Because
Anyway,
it's so
yeah,
straight.
very right, very square, very straight.
Play ball.
Yes. Mhm.
So what is it? The Pigeon Whisperer. This hot new ticket.
The Pigeon Whisperer is it's a new puppet show from the creators of The Lion King. And Mandy Patinkin plays the pigeon. It's a Mo Willems production where the pigeon will in fact one day drive the bus.
I'm really liking this. Yes, and
I'm yes anding as hard as I can. Yeah.
I love this. I love
Okay.
anybody that will yes and my silliness.
All right.
That show has shuttered.
Mm,
Those
that's too bad.
actors, I know, but it had a great run.
Oh, great.
But from the producers who brought you the
Mhm.
Pigeon Whisperer, their new hot ticket on the Great White Way. Why does it have to be white? Sorry. Ghosts of DMV.
Ghosts of DMV. Well, the Ghosts of DMV is it's a story about well, obviously a haunted DMV. This is
Yes.
this is a DMV that is it's set in 200 years from now, in a future where congestion pricing actually takes place in New York City, and so the DMV is no longer necessary in New York City. And there's the ghost of 3 bureaucratic assholes floating around, still desperately just taking terrible pictures. One person that just takes terrible pictures, and they sing 3 ghost songs, and then a paranormal investigator, also
Ooh.
played by Mandy Patinkin, because it's the same producers. You know what I mean?
Of
Like,
course.
they
And
you
he
know,
needs a new gig.
right, sure. The pigeon thing did well, but you know what I mean? Like, he's working, he's auditioning again. So it's Mandy Patinkin and Rachel York, who's a wonderful
Oh.
singer. Yes. And Rachel York plays the one of the ghosts that is in the DMV and not doing anything anymore. And Mandy Patinkin is the paranormal investigator, and they fall in love. They fall in love.
Of course.
Yes, and the ghosts of the DMV. And then from the
I did not
past,
think the Ghost of DMV would be a love story.
you know what? It'll make you cry. It'll make you cry.
I can only imagine the merch. Okay. The producers are ecstatic. They've
Mhm.
had 2 amazing runs. They are now ready to bring a 3rd baby and get it out of the ballpark.
This is a
I
bummer because I'm
don't-
running out of Broadway people I know. All I knew was Rachel York and Mandy Patinkin.
I mean, they are out of a gig. Our last and final Great White Way
Mhm.
a show from the producers of Ghost of the DMV and The
Mhm.
Pigeon Whisperer.
Love it.
We bring you the new hot ticket in town, The Werewolf Librarian.
The Werewolf Librarian. This is a wonderful story about a paranormal library that is only open on full moons. And it's the librarian. He's played by Kevin DeLaguila, who's a comedian that's on Broadway. I see. I didn't.
there you go.
You thought I didn't know any more Broadway stars, but I do. He was in Little Shop. Very, very good. So Kevin DeLaguila plays the librarian in the paranormal library that's only open on the full moon, right? But the problem is, since it's only open on the full moon, right, whenever the patrons come in to get the paranormal texts, they turn into the werewolf, and then they shred the entire library. So it's a problem, you know.
I thought the books were all going to be books about moons.
But I mean, it actually ends up being just a jukebox musical. It's just, Blue Moon, right? Like it's
it's
yeah.
all moon songs.
Yes. It's moon. Moon River, right?
I think we have a show here. I think this one, out of all three silly ones, is a potential actual show. Somebody call me, Werewolf Librarian. It's our idea. We'll sell it.
I'm just stunned that Mandy Patinkin wasn't in it. That was the shocker to me.
Well, he does need to take a vacation once in a while.
He does. He's just right. He's going to be in the Ghosts of DMV Jellicle Ball.
Yes. Well, before we go, there was when we were on Keith and the Girl together, you mentioned about the 90 and 90.
Yeah.
Let's kind of have that be our last little dance for the night. Talk to my listeners about your 90 and 90. What is that? That sounds like my 75 hard, but it's not.
I love that that's actually something that my wife brought up. She said she loved hearing the 75 hard. Yeah, no, the 90 and 90 was, well, first of all, I did stand up super, super hard as a kid. That's when I, brought Keith onto the stage. I was, from about like 1996 through about 2011, I did stand up really hard in the city, and got married, had a kid, progressed kind of into more of a writing career. And as towards the end of in the pandemic, I stopped drinking. I hadn't had a drink in about 4 years. At the end of last year, I also stopped. I was what's known as California sober.
Yes.
Which
is me right now.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I mean, look, it's not bad. This is the joke I had in the show is, there's nothing wrong with being California sober. It's great. It's sort of like bragging about running a half marathon, Oh, you mean you get to use the word marathon, right? But you only don't do anywhere near the amount of work. Yeah, it's half. It's half. Not terrible. It's not terrible. But at any rate, yeah, no. So I had decided to cut weed out of my life. And the joke I had on it is it's not that I hit bottom, but I hit boredom.
Sure.
And I felt like I was in a rut. I was doing the same thing over and over again. And I stopped doing that. And it was hard. It was crazy. It was really, really difficult. I was, and one of the things I did is I went back into AA for a little bit, and I was doing some stand-up again. I hadn't done stand-up in a long time. And when I was in AA, one of the things I kept hearing was if you're new to AA, you should be doing 90 AA meetings in 90 days. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't had a drink in 4 years, so I didn't really think that like I liked a lot of the things that I found in AA. I felt like it was getting me out of the house. It was making me think about myself. It was making me take a hard look at like the concept of pride and of humility and how all that stuff works. And so I was getting a lot out of it, but like 90 and 90 meetings felt like more AA than I needed. But as I was doing the reading and talking to people in the program about it, the reasons that they did it resonated really hard for the way I did comedy, or the way I would like to maybe try comedy, and the reasons you do 90 and 90 are with AA, to build a community, if you have a tough day, it doesn't knock you down. You stay on your program. You set up a goal that is it's challenging, but it's still not, I need to be sober for the rest of my life. It's, I need to knock out 90 meetings in 90 days. You meet people, you make connections, you keep your ego out of it. And it's all these, it
makes it goal oriented.
It makes it goal oriented. And it does a thing where, one thing that's amazing about AA that translated really well to stand up was I was very judgmental of other comedians. I would either think that I would be jealous of other comedians, or I would be disdainful of other comedians that I felt like were, and removing pride and removing humility from it and trying to force yourself to do that and say, I'm not better than any of these comedians. I'm not better than any of these gigs. And so I thought, what if I could do 90 stand-up sets in 90 days? And I just trying to remove, there was a lot of sets and things. I mean, the reason I wasn't doing stand-up anymore was a lot because of pride. I felt like I'm better than that. I'm better than this show. I'm better than these people. I don't want to be going and doing this crappy ass open mic or this other show. But the reality is I've been out of it for so long that I wasn't getting booked anywhere else. So if I could either decide to be egotistical about it and never do an art form that I really enjoyed, or I could throw my ego out the door and say, screw it. I'm going to do 90 sets in 90 days, however I can get them. Any open mic, any show, anything I can do. And so the show that I did, that's the massive hit in the past, was called Set for Life. And the idea was that doing these 90 sets in 90 days
Yes.
was not about getting a TV show or impressing anybody or whatever. It was doing sets for doing the work. And I found that, I mean, the reason I'm sitting here right now is because I did that work and then managed to write that show about doing it. And that got me onto Keith and the Girl, which got me meeting you, which is an active thing. And my whole, whatever it is I'm doing, I mean, I don't know, I no longer have an expectation or I don't feel like entitled to making a living in comedy anymore. Like I'm now just, I was a copywriter for Amazon for the past 2 years. I hopefully in the next couple months, I'll get picked up again and I'll get to work for them again. Maybe I'll get picked up and maybe I'll work for Sesame Street. Maybe I'll get picked up at PBS Kids. I don't know what it'll be, but I've just doing the hard work and immersion to do that has led to all of whatever these little show business opportunities that I'm in. And it just feels like I'm saying yes to the world in a way that I had not been doing that before. And so the show Set for Life was, I'm not doing sets for show business success for money for any of this stuff. I'm doing it for me. And lo and behold, doors have opened.
Oh, I love that.
Well,
It
it's no
resonates-
9/11, but what is?
It's not Cats.
I mean, but can you imagine planning Cats? Cats has got to be something like that. How does that even?
From the producers of the
understand
Werewolf
how-
Librarian.
Do you know how expensive it is to do Cats? Can you imagine? Like, we're gonna need 80 cat suits. What? And a giant tire that's gonna lift up to the sky. What are you talking about?
And the makeup, just the makeup alone.
Right. And a massive global hit, like this is a story that we should be telling about, like Paris is Burning, that movie, like underground thing spawns the, drag ballroom scene, but it's like like the story of Cats should be the story of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, a weird thing that happens at midnight still for some reason. I don't really understand why, right? Like that's what Cats should be.
And people dress up as cats for some reason.
No, you want to know why people don't dress up as cats? Because it's too expensive.
It's also itchy.
Yes. And then in the movie, you see the movie of Cats? Like Taylor Swift is in it. There's like a weird cat with like nipples. There's like Stringer Bell. The cat is in it, like Dame Judi Dench. It's like, what in the is going on with the cats?
And it's like weird, like half CGI.
Yes. And it's also like the amazing thing about the Cats movie too is like it's not even bad enough to be good enough to watch as a hate watch. You literally are like, I'm watching this and I'm astounded by it, but I'm still bored. You know what I mean? Like I'm never not also bored by this fucking thing.
Oh my God. I love I wonder how many people tuned into the top of this show expecting it to be so much like I know I didn't.
I'm stunned I had this much in me about this. This is
I smell your next special.
Yeah, right. Oh my God. God forbid.
90 cats.
90 sets in 90 lives.
You go see Cats 90 times.
Oh my God, can you imagine?
And you have to dissect it differently every time.
Oh my God.
Oh gosh. Well, we have sadly reached my least favorite part of the show, which is where we promote each other's things or our own things.
Please do. I'm excited.
Where can all the Muppets and Cats in my audience find you on the social medias?
Just probably the best place is Richie D on Instagram. It's RITCHIEDEE on Instagram.
Perfect.
And here's my clock again. I'm Richie D on Instagram and Threads. I'm one of those weirdos that is still doing Threads.
I do it sometimes.
And Richie D on Instagram and Threads. I will see whether I end up jumping into TikTok. I don't know. My daughter does it, so it feels like a boundary that I probably shouldn't cross.
I know, it's weird. I've tried the TikTok and it just feels like this impenetrable place that's not for me.
I mean,
know.
I understand it. I also, and this is just me personally. I can't speak to your strengths, but
Sure.
I missed Twitter because if I do anything well, it's write short, funny things,
Me too.
and
Yeah, I like short little
little
things. Yeah.
little blurb, a little joke, a little, I loved doing it obviously for the Muppets, and
Yeah.
I mean, so and also the idea of a fictional character tweeting made sense before they eliminated the blue check. I mean,
Yeah.
you could do a fictional character on Twitter when the blue check system wasn't this awful pay for play thing.
Oh,
So I mean,
Elon.
it's the worst. But yeah, no, Richie D on Instagram is probably the best way to keep track of what I'm up to.
Awesome. And if anybody wants to hire you for anything,
I'm ridiculously available. I mean, I don't know, the show where if we're gonna
no,
keep
you are
yes-anding
very high
this,
in
I'm so
demand.
booked. I'm
They need to get through me.
right. Yeah.
Hire him, hire Richie. Speaking, no, that's not a transition. I'm not for hire, but what I am for is for my
Mhm.
patrons. Please sign up to the new Patreon, sophiepod.com/Patreon will take you there. Sign up now while I'm still figuring out the back end. The first time you heard me make an ad, the bottom tier would get a sticker every I don't know how many fucking months I started doing it. The back end doesn't work like that. You know what
Mm.
that means? All of you get something in the mail every month.
Yeah. I
So
love
some of you
mail.
get I do too. And so some of you will get one sticker in the mail every month. Some of you will get two stickers in the mail. Some of you will get two stickers in the mail and a t-shirt every 6 months because that I can track on my own. So there's a honey tier, a sugar tier, and a caramel tier. Along those, you can get production credit. You can get access to the back catalog that's being built out. So little by little, older episodes that are available now free on the feed, they're getting locked away into the vault like Disney, but you can have access to that vault. You can have access to cutting room floor footage that I like to call hot cam. So like when we're setting up the camera in the beginning or in between
My
sessions.
wife in her pajamas fixing my audio issues, huh? Va
The
va
brain
voom.
trust. So yes.
Let's take a quiet moment while my wife also screams at the podcast. That's while she's running. She's hearing it. Yes. Ah, that was nice.
So yes, please sign up to the Patreon. I'm so excited. People are signing up to the Patreon. I need to actually next week send out you'll get little note cards in the mail with the stickers, and I'm just so excited. I'm working on merch samples right now for the first run of t-shirts. But to those of you that signed up to the Patreon, I've had this podcast since 2017. This has been a self-funded project since the beginning. I've always owned my RSS feed, my website, everything, because I come from the school of Keith and the Girl. And so, it's been an investment. And now, for the first time ever, I'm making a little bit of money through the Patreon. So, all my little patrons, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I love you. It's affirming. It makes me feel like sticking through this for as long as I have and bringing it back and bringing it back and refining it every time and refining it every time has been worth it. And speaking of refining, the last little plug of the day, my new little baby project, the Whisper Lounge. It's an anonymous. Wait, what is?
What's the Whisper Lounge? Sounds fascinating. Tell me all about it.
Thank you. I can't wait to tell you. The Whisper Lounge. It's a secret, safe place for all of your little whispers. What does that mean? Everybody has a secret, and almost everybody likes to listen in on some secrets. So I have, if you go to sophiepod.com/whisper, you will find a link to a place where you can send me anonymously. I will not know who it is from. You can send me a written note. You can send me a voice note. You can send me a pigeon carrier. You can send me a werewolf note. I will take all those little whispers and those secrets, and I will keep them safe with me. What am I going to do with them? I don't know yet, but all I know is that they're safe with Mimi. So send me your whispers.
Spill the tea with us in the Whisper Lounge. We've got little tidbits, the sweetest secrets, and maybe even a few laughs waiting for you. Got something fun to share? Well, send it on over. Because here, we love a good story. And your secrets are always safe with Mimi. sofepod.com/whisper.
Intriguing.
Thank you. Yeah, I for a little, kind of how the sausage is made, I've been trying to unlock this concept, the idea of like being able to do a podcast I love having guests, and like having been a fan of Keith and the Girl for so long, I always thought I needed a co-host. And
Mhm.
so even just having a guest-based show was like a way to not have a co-host.
Mm.
And now I'm trying to find a way to create content that doesn't require a guest also. And this idea of just having like somewhere where people could send me their secrets seems very intriguing, and it's very me.
That's fantastic. Reminds me
Thank
of
you.
there was this old school website called Post Secrets. Do you remember them?
Yes,
Yeah.
and there's a few versions of this. There's been a
Mhm.
few versions of this over the years, of like these anonymous places that people send their secrets. So I feel like it's like think of it as like a cozy little something. It could be cozy, it could be funny, it can be, scandalous. But, I'm a bit of a voyeuristic person. I'll admit it. And I know many of you are. So send me your little secrets, and let's revel in our little secrets together.
That sounds fantastic. How did they do it again?
SophiePod.com/whisper. Thank you for asking. You are a professional.
Hey, I'm curious. I'm curious.
Well, Rich, you are a dream. You are a doll. This has been so much fun. I knew I was going to laugh with you. I didn't think I was going to be laughing this much and this hard. And I definitely did not think that we were going to dive this deep into cats, but shows to go, yeah.
Well, it has been my absolute pleasure. It was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And hopefully I'll talk to you soon.
You will.
Okay.
I mean, you won't know because it's going to be my secret.
Ooh!
Coming in, incoming.
Thank you, Rich. Have a good night. Please say thank you to your wife for helping.
I will. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.